So we are on by the look of things, which is good. There's a bit of a delay, so there we go.
Yes.
Morning, everybody. How are we?
Good. Good morning.
Morning. Very well, thank you.
How's everyone's week been?
Yes, good.
Everyone's week's been, yeah, good.
We've all got our coffee, I assume, for our Sunday social.
Well, running out.
We've all got our cheers. Good morning. Oh, you've run out.
I'm going to need another one.
That's why I went for a massive cup.
So our first ever Sunday social. Thank you for coming along. For those watching, we've got Julia, who heads up and founder of Strong Ambition Method. We've got Martin, who's founder and director for Recruitment. Steve, who's my brother and partner in Mastermind. We've got a few things we're going to talk about generally, how we've discussed things that we've experienced throughout the last week and a few topics that have come up in the news in the last few days. But first of all, I'll start with Group really and talk about what's been happening this week. In particular, I think Julia made quite an interesting discovery in the non-alcoholic wine sector, which has been good.
Big news. Big news.
Is big news.
Yeah.
Breaking.
Let's see it. Let's see it. Come on.
Let's see it. Yeah. So I have been not drinking alcohol for just over 8 months. Now, this wasn't because I was a alcoholic. This is sort of the grey area drinking. This is the kind of it was making me feel tired, and I felt I had big things I wanted to accomplish, and I just felt that the booze was slowing me down. So I've gone on a bit of a discovery of what is out there on the market for non-alcoholic beverages. And when I was pregnant 6 years ago, it was rubbish. There was nothing, and all I had was apple ties and soda, lime and lemonade, those kind of nonsense, cordial mixers, non-alcoholic drinks. So what I've discovered this time is the non-alcoholic beers are phenomenal now. I've been enjoying Punk IPA, non-alcoholic, and this week I discovered a non-alcoholic wine, and I have no connections to this business. And this is this is a shameless plug to get sponsorship or something. This is Torres. Torres are an amazing wine company anyway, and we used to enjoy their wine when I did drink it. And they're just owning this sector. Their wine is phenomenal, and I was blown away. I expected very little, and because you kind of miss that glass of cold, crisp white wine in the summer with a meal, and I was missing that. So I discovered this, and it gives you this nice tannin, the sensation you get in the side of your cheeks. It gives you that. It gives you the smell. I mean, it smells like booze. And it's so Moorish. I mean, me and my husband finished, he's still drinking, but he is actually replacing a lot of his glasses of wine with this. So, even from a wine buff, he has we have this small lounge and he has 2 big wine fridges. So we,
priorities,
exactly. I'm like, can we have a side table or something? No, we've got wine fridges and one with the reds and one with the whites. And we've managed to he's given me a whole quarter of a fridge I've got full of these wines, and they do red as well. So that is an absolutely not. I'm not connected to them whatsoever. But if I can recommend a non-alcoholic or de-alcoholized wine, that is it.
Where did you get it from, Julia?
Now I'm gonna sound very middle class.
If we're plugging people.
Yeah. I got it from Ocado. Yeah. So yeah, very dare I say it, I sound very middle class, but clearly I'm not. I'm working class. Yeah, so amazing. So if I can recommend that.
I think it is interesting, that alcohol thing, because I think during lockdown, me and my wife have, I think, both drunk probably more than we used to, and I think it's, like I say, it's the association that you get with it. So yesterday we sat in the garden and we'd been out. To be fair, I went for an 8-mile run, and we'd been out with the kids on the bikes, and then we'd been on their scooters. So we'd had a pretty hectic day. And I lit the barbecue about 5:30, and we're sitting there, it was like, God, it's that sort of recognition, thinking, oh, that's the same time now. I'm going to associate with lighting the barbecue and having a beer or a glass of wine or whatever it may be. So it is interesting how you just associate things. So I think if you can have a non-alcoholic wine, you're still getting that association, but actually it's not doing the calories and all the other bits. And but I don't know, to be fair, I suppose you don't get the alcohol. But is it the same sort of price?
It's a little bit less. It's by no means cheap, because I guess you're going through actually more processes, because I think it is a wine, and then it's I've not looked into this.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
De-alcoholized. So my crude understanding of the process is that then it's removed. So I mean, it goes through the same stages. It even has a year, 2019, a good year.
It won't sell quite well now.
And it's a good vintage. So it works out a bit cheaper, but yeah, you're bang on. It's a reward. We think, I've had what are the steps? What's the process that I take to relax after I've taken the kids out for the day? Which shouldn't be hard work, but it is, isn't it?
Oh, it is. It's the same, isn't it? Because it's the same thing you think, okay, I'm just going to drink on sort of Friday or Saturday evening. And then you have a bad day at work on a Monday, and you go, "Oh, I've had a bad day. I deserve a glass of wine." If you go, "Well, you know what? We closed a great deal today, so we had a great day. So I'll have a glass of wine." So it's like you're trying to.
There's always a trigger.
Yeah, it's win-win, whichever way you're looking at it. Yeah, absolutely. So interesting.
It is.
I swear, I started experimenting with the non-alcoholic beer a couple of weeks ago. I started to feel real crap. I just had one glass of wine, and I felt like shit for 3 days. And so I thought, well, I still want to have a drink at the weekend. So I went and found the local little Tesco down by me has a choice of one Heineken, and so I got some of that. Actually, they're actually pretty decent. And once
they're just a bit gassy, aren't they?
Yeah, I don't normally drink lager, and the challenge I've found is trying to find a non-alcoholic beer rather than a lager, and particularly one that I can get within walking distance was next to impossible. The Peroni's non-alcoholic ones are quite decent, and I've got some San Miguel at the moment, which have also taste quite a lot like San Miguel, but without the alcohol. So you get the kind of enjoyment, and then fine, and it's the way forward. I'm sold on the whole idea.
It is, because you don't ruin your evening. You can still do stuff later on, and I mean, when I live with you, I live
on the
with
bike
you.
I went. I had like three beers and 2 glasses of wine on Friday night. Got up yesterday morning and went out and did 45 k's on the bike, right as rain.
Blimey, amazing.
So, I'm all for it.
Steve, what have you tried?
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Martin.
No.
I'm hardly drunk. I'm trying. I've been on a weight loss diet since Martin called me fat. So I've
Who needs enemies?
I've been trying to lose weight for a while.
Well, that's my middle name, mate. Motivation. It needs
motivation, Martin. So you've just cut it out. You've cut it out completely, have you?
Do you know what? I've never really been a home drinker anyway, particularly, unless I've had people round, and then I'd have like some wine or whatever. But I don't drink lager. I drink Guinness, but I don't like Guinness out of a can. So it really limits me to what I'll drink.
Yeah.
But I don't mind having a wine or whatever. But I think I tend to exercise like most days, and if I drank, I probably wouldn't do the exercise the next day. So I don't bother. And
yeah, it does.
It doesn't really bother me. I'm not really fussed.
Yeah.
Like,
that's good.
I've never really been that bothered by alcohol, to be honest. But
it's a great mentality, having that kind of take it or leave it. Yeah, not bothered. It's a great mentality. I think for me, I associated a lot of what Martin said, with that reward element, and I need to de-stress. So that's what I use to de-stress. It's fantastic that you don't even need that, and that you use exercise instead.
Well, yeah, I do now, but even before I don't think I'd have drunk at home particularly, especially not like Martin said. Friday and Saturday would tend to be the main days that you reward yourself with a drink or whatever. But if I wasn't going out, I still wouldn't drink, even when exercise wasn't really the thing. If we went on Dave's or whatever, then I'd drink. But never at home. I've never been a home drinker. Never really said
am I the reason?
Yeah, you are a bad influence. Yeah.
You're the link.
I might have got for social distancing.
You're the trigger. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
no,
that's-
I'm not really asked.
Yeah, no, it's and how is your? You might. I don't. You've raised it as long as you're not embarrassed talking about it.
On furlough.
But yeah, exactly. How's everything going, and how are you? And also, you said you were on this weight loss journey.
Julia, let me cut
Yeah,
in.
go on.
So for years, Steve was mega skinny, mega skinny. And he'd sort of and I hadn't seen him for a few years, and I sort of bump into him, obviously I've known him for, I don't know,
Poor
30 years. And he'd always sort of say to me or my wife, "Oh, I'm just trying to put on weight. I'm trying to put on weight." And he'd have some sort of ludicrous calorie intake that he'd have to do, like 4,000 or 5,000 calories he was trying to eat to put on weight, because he was just to be, if we're taking the mick, just to be a normal size rather than being skinny. And so when I saw him last, I was like, "Oh, well done, you put on weight." And it because you'd already been trying to fill out rather than, cool, you've put on a bit of timber.
It's classic.
Age quite home in the end.
So yeah, basically age did catch up with me in the end, and I got lazy really. So I'd just eat anything, chocolate and sweets were my main thing, really. And so about 6 years ago, it all really slowed down, and I ended up at 91 kilos, basically, was like the weight I was at, but pretty miles out of shape. And so towards the end of last year, I decided, because we were getting married this year, that I was going to lose loads of weight and tone up and everything like that, and it was going to be great. And so I decided, right, the 6th of January was going to be the day I started, and the 6th of January was the day that I started, and I was having 2 sugars and milk in my tea and coffee on the 5th of January. On the 6th of January, I had black coffee, no sugar.
Amazing.
And everything went. So I didn't
Bloody
have
moaned about
any
it for a while, though, I can tell you.
It was horrendous. I was climbing the walls for 6 weeks, I reckon I climbed the walls for. We had to go through our cupboards and throw all of our food out that wasn't on the plan. Because if I had it in the house, I'll find it. And we have my son every other weekend, and obviously then some sweet stuff creeps in. Yeah. If he doesn't eat it all then, I will sniff it out like a dog. And I will look for it all around the house.
Force-feeding Charlie sweets to avoid him eating it.
Get rid of it, or he has to take it home with him. So anyway, now I'm 77 kilos now.
Well done.
So I've lost that, but now there's no gym. So I'm fading away and turning into a bit of a coat hanger. Which is a bit of a problem. But yeah, no, it's been good.
By the end of the year.
I hate running.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, me too. I can do about 500 meters, and then I can't breathe. I just have no stamina.
For me, it's a mental battle for me after about 2K. After 2K, my brain's going, have a walk, won't you?
It's boring.
Have a little walk, shall we, for a little bit? No one know, will they? It's only because I've got my watch on. I have to keep going. No, the watch is on.
Yeah, Strava knows.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think when you can run, though, you start not thinking about anyone that doesn't run says that and says, "Oh, it's boring," or
yeah, sorry, I shouldn't have said that.
No, yeah, I think once you can run, then you can go and explore places and run around, and it just be part of, you're not thinking about running or breathing, you're just looking at the, I don't know, wildlife along the river or the houses that you run past and think, oh, I live in there.
Are you not blowing at all when you're running? Like, you're not like gas at all?
Not really. No, well, it depends, obviously. At the last lap of the Ironman, yeah, I was gassed, yeah. And then I was just, I've got to go home. What am I doing? Now I will walk. But not really. I mean, I don't really, if I do, I don't know, for 15 miles or more, I get home and still have a conversation.
Wait a minute. After 5K, I'm like on my knees. Gasp.
I puked. I did a 5K run and I puked at the end. I ran in a marathon. Martin, I'm deeply jealous of you for being able to run, and that is why. And I love the concept of you saying you actually can explore, you see the beauty, you have this amazing freedom. And I think just the concept of getting out the front door and starting, not having to like go to the gym, get dressed, put your trainers on, you know, that immediacy of running, I think is phenomenal. And I'm very jealous of you.
Yeah, I think we're quite fortunate where we live. I mean, from obviously what's round here, but I just think I can't stand going to the gym. I'll swim, obviously, and I don't have a swimming pool in my house, so I have to go to the gym for that reason. But I just like being outside, and that's why I've got on my bike and run, so I can just be out and about. It's good fun.
I'm holding out for a very long shot that there might be some loosening at 7 o'clock this evening that will allow us to cycle at least in pairs and not going out.
So my opinion on this is that if it does get lifted today a little bit, I think it'll be back restricted by the following weekend. Only because when I went out yesterday out and about, there was so many people and so many cars, and he hasn't even lifted it yet.
Oh yeah, no, I saw it yesterday.
I think and they're going to know because of location settings on phones where everybody was and what they were doing, and how many people actually left their address. So they already know before today's announcement. So it could have already been affected. They may just go, if we give them, they've already told them they can. There's only like a speculation that he might, and people have already gone. So the minute he says, "Oh yeah, go on," you can. It's slightly like loosened up. Everyone's just going to go back to normal, aren't they? Except if you can't go shopping.
Within reason. But I don't see the point. I don't see the problem in like a few people going out cycling in the countryside. If you're able to then cycle to work or do all the other things, and you can go to the supermarket, you have to queue 2 meters apart and then go in individually, and then you can walk around however you bloody well like once you're in the shop. Doesn't make any sense. So why can't you just go out for on a bike rather than? And there already are. I've seen quite a few. Yesterday I went out. There were quite a few people cycling around in pairs. And like you said, Steve, I went up in the countryside above Henley, and there's a common area, and the amount of cars that were parked up there where people decided to drive up to go for a walk, either with the dogs or by themselves, was the most people I ever. I came around a corner and saw there was a group of about 10 people in the road. I haven't seen a group of 10 people for weeks.
And it's not even been allowed to happen yet.
No. So be interesting. And another thing you just mentioned, which is probably one thing talking about, is the tracking and the NHS app. I'm interested. My personal opinion, I'm not going anywhere near the bloody thing, but.
Well, people have got that. Like I say, if you own a mobile phone, people can find out where you are anyway. I think
immediately you open it. Immediately you go on any app that allows location settings, while you use the app, automatically will trigger exactly where you are. So if you open Facebook when you went anywhere, Instagram, anything, while you open that mobile phone, your location settings kicked in. It already knows that you've left and you're already on the move.
But under GDPR, you can't just have free access to that data. So,
but you
the
also
government have to have their own app, because they couldn't get the data from Facebook without your consent. That would be a massive breach of European law.
Yeah, I'm a law-abiding citizen. I know that there's people probably in government that would probably take that advantage of that data, like wherever they are. But I think that if the pandemic kind of like emergency program that the UK devised before this happened is supposed to be amazing, and that's what South Korea used. So they used ours we decided that we couldn't afford to run our own pandemic thing, and apparently it was the track and trace technology that actually almost stopped the virus and protected them. So I think I wear a GPS watch for running. Garmin are at the forefront of using smartwatch technology for early signs of symptoms for COVID-19. And I don't know, I think that if they want to find you, even on them silly programs on TV, Hunted, they seem to find you pretty quickly if you leave your front door. So I'm pretty sure that they want to know.
They're all in on it.
As long as you're not out robbing a bank with a mask on, I'm sure you'll be fine. Yeah.
As long as I haven't got a camera crew following me around, I'll be
exactly. I don't know what gives it away. The fact that it's all part of the same TV show and there's a camera crew and someone with a boom bike running down the road. I can't think how they find them. And they also know where the end point is. So they might as well just stand there like Gary Lineker waiting on the goal line. You know what I mean? Moving them up. My only question on that app thing really though is, I get, I've signed. You're right. You're tracked and traced on everything else, but Apple and Google are working together to produce a centralized version of the app that collects less data. The question is, why is the UK government a decentralized version that collects more information? And to quote them, they have their reason to have greater level of control over the app and the data. Why would they need that if there's going to be effectively a global version?
I don't know enough about it to say one or the other. I think we probably slowly but surely probably heading that way.
Hey, he's back. Back on.
We're losing you, Martin. Oh.
Yeah. No, I don't know enough about the app either, really.
Probably,
like
we probably
said,
should then, shouldn't we?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, we should know more. We should, yeah, really.
Rather than just go, oh yeah, it's probably okay. Who knows? And I know it's all a bit conspiracy theorist and the rest of it, but if you look at history, there are lots of instances where these kind of scenarios come along, and in the name of safety, and it's very easy to get people to support these kind of things, in the name of safety, you can unwittingly request that in additional amounts of your liberty get removed. So it happened in Germany in the 30s, and I'm not saying we're in the same situation, but when people have a collective fear, very easy to convince people that this is all in the public best interest and blah blah blah, and it starts with an app like this, which could be quite innocent, but who knows where that goes afterwards, because you get a lot of people saying yeah we want tighter restrictions because we want to make sure we're staying safe, and yeah, you should all be tagged so that we know that you're allowed to go out at certain times and blah blah blah. Before you know it, you wake up in a world where you're dictated to when you can leave the home, who you can interact with, when, and all the rest of it. And I think you've got to be very careful. Yes, it's easy to say, well, we're already tracked and traced on everything, and Amazon knows everything, but Amazon's mostly just trying to sell me some more crap. They're not trying to restrict, and they have no legal bearing over what I do inside and outside of my home. Just something where I'll be on.
I think we're all pre-programmed to just accept apps now in the world that we live in. Nobody really questions what the app is now, do they? It's download this app, okay. Yeah. I'll do that, no problem.
I've seen Kingsman. If you haven't seen Kingsman, watch Kingsman.
No, I haven't seen it.
Great film.
Yeah. But that was all started off with them people downloading an app.
Yes.
You see.
Forgot about that element.
Yeah,
yes.
So that's never stopped it.
Yeah, I think you're definitely right.
Yeah, go on.
I think yes, you are right in that we have to be really careful that we don't sleepwalk into any decisions, that we do, you know, if we do decide to download it, we just need to understand what data it's taking, do our research, because I think so much that is happening now is people aren't doing their research. People, you know, people don't, maybe they don't have time, you know, but of course that should never be an excuse to not do your research for something so critically important. And I think so many things recently have happened that I said that would never happen. Don't worry, that will never happen. I had a colleague, the last business I worked at, who's French, and he said, you know, should I, you know, invest in the British pound? You know, he said, with Brexit coming up, should I? Will it happen? Will it happen? No, absolutely not. So he invested on basis of my recommendation, and of course, it's what happened. Yeah, I had to go in and apologise, but it was his decision. So, and I think, you know, again, things like Trump, oh, it'll never happen. It can't happen. It's so far away. Something like the pandemic, it's not going to happen. You know, all these other things have come and they've gone, and it's not happened. And of course, all these things are happening. So the risk is that we'd say, no, we're not going to get, you know, an app won't lock us down. You know, an app won't do X, Y, and Z. And I think it's not saying that won't happen. It's just educate yourself on what is the risk that it does happen. What is the implications if it does happen? What are the implications of, you know, the government knowing more and more? And, you know, what is the absolute bare minimum of what they need to track, you know, to track the virus versus what are the additional extra pieces of data, which they are also taking in as well. Where does it end? And like Dave, I know we had a brief conversation about this earlier in the week, which is once it is over and it has passed, there'll be always the next thing. So they're not going to say once it's over you can delete the app. It's going to be a continuation. It's not going to go away. So it's like what else will they track for? What else? And it just, you know, it's insidious. It slips in something, you know, a small app on your phone with all the other apps. And at what point does it take over and it just tracks you all the time? And also you got, yeah, go on, please.
It's you, right? It's everyone you come within 10 meters of. It's pinging their Bluetooth and finding out their IMEI, which let's say is not any identified information, which is absolute nonsense for any of us that have worked in the mobile telecoms industry. They can find out your shoe size from your IMEI, so absolute rubbish that they track it, and that's just something to be aware of. It's
aware, exactly.
I think, yeah, why? And if you look at what's happening in Wuhan now, everyone is color-coded health status, and they can put any criteria they want onto that health status, color-coding, and it could be you're red unless you have a vaccine. Well, I don't even know what's in that vaccine. All the things that started on this takes 10 years to create a vaccine, and suddenly they're doing trials in 2 months. Now, it's going to be crazy if you want that thing after 2 months worth of work, and they still don't actually know all of how the virus operates entirely, and they build and then make the vaccine. I find that all a little bit scary anyway. A little bit dark for a Sunday morning, but I think it's something to be considerate of, and not blindly. It's worth reading a bit of history and look at some of the tactics that have taken place in the past, particularly in 1930s Germany, because it's very similar. Herd fear is what created environment for someone like Hitler. Now we don't have a Hitler, thankfully, but it does create an environment for a populist person to take control. And before you know it, you've got no liberty left, because you all voted for it. That's what they'll say. This is all for you. You all asked for it. That's just something to be conscious of, I think.
Yeah.
Carry on.
I was gonna say I don't know enough about it. So what is the reason that they're saying the app is for then?
So that it can track your current status, whether you've been tested, whether you've had it or whether you've had the virus or not, and whether you have symptoms, and then who you come into contact within a time frame. So if you've got that app on, use it via Bluetooth, it will ping every Bluetooth device within 10-meter radius, because that's the Bluetooth range, and it will store that information, so that if you then get tested, say you haven't been tested and you do get tested and you turn out to be positive, it will then know everyone you've come into contact and everyone they've come into contact with and everyone they've come into contact with. And basically, they'll be able to map out throughout the entire UK the degrees of separation, who comes into contact with who, for what reason, other than, I mean, and they don't need to know the data. All they need to really know is the number of people rather than the specific people. And my understanding is that the Google and Apple version isn't collecting the same level of identifying information. They're just collecting numbers and points of contact rather than IMEIs, which can be tracked.
Which they have anyway, probably.
They have anyway, exactly.
Because everyone's got an iPhone, right?
Yes. Apple interesting because they don't tend to they're probably the tightest with customer user data, whereas obviously Google uses multiple platforms to build their own data engine so that they know exactly what you're thinking before you do, so that they can put the right products and services in front of your face. Whereas Apple is more of a closed ecosystem within their own small bubble, and they don't tend to, there's been famous cases where they refused to de-encrypt the iPhone because of the risk. I mean, the company in Israel did it in about 3 seconds anyway, but Apple still refused to do that, and I think that's quite interesting. And I would probably have a little bit more. I don't know. I feel like having the data in the hands of a corporate is probably slightly less risky than having the hands in someone, having the data in the hands of someone who actually has legal jurisdiction over you. Company go so far.
Yeah, because they only want to sell something because they want to make some money versus an alternative agenda, I guess.
Yeah, and then, like I said, in Wuhan they've got a 3-color code system. It's green, amber, or red. If you're red, you're not allowed to leave the house and they'll track you. Amber, you're only allowed to go at certain times and do certain things. And green means you're allowed to go to and from work and socialise afterwards if you want to. And the risk is you can set that criteria in any way. Like I said, you could be red if you haven't had a vaccine. Why would they? That sounds a bit scary in itself.
It is interesting because on the same token, you'd think that if they say you have to have this app, for example, or we wanted to have it, it would be great on the same token if they could say, here's testing for everybody and here's a vaccine for everybody. I know it's not maybe as simple as that, but at least then that would go in conjunction with the app and you'd know that you're doing your bit, but kind of they're doing their bit in respect of the testing is out there. And if you want to leave your home, you have to have had a test, for example, but they can't, it doesn't seem, you hear a lot of stuff on the news around kind of they're rolling out testing or trying to do 100,000 a day, only to people that have got symptoms and in hospital, as I understand it, or if your family has, or in certain places. So I think it would be great if they could say you can use the app and you can upload that data. But once you've been tested and we're in a position where we can test everybody at the same time, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, the vaccine thing is a little bit scary. I'm going to be right at the back of the queue for that thing. And we were talking on Friday about in the 1960s where they brought out the medication for morning sickness. Loads of babies being born with nothing below the elbow, right? How do you, and a vaccine that's a normal, like I said, normally they say it takes 10 years to develop a vaccine for a virus like this, and they're through trials within 2 months.
Well, that's if it wasn't man-made and they didn't know what it was in the first place.
Well, that's another question, isn't it? Who knows?
Yeah, if we're talking conspiracy theories,
well, I mean, even Trump, even Trump's now come out, and that probably loses some credibility to the argument. But he's come out and said he believes it's man-made, because there is actually a big pathology lab. There's a big in Wuhan, right, which is where they make these things. They actually do develop these viruses, and they do develop other biological viruses, diseases, those kind of things. And there is a place in Wuhan, and funnily enough, that's where the whole thing started. So it's not out of the realms of possibility that this was being created, and whether it was deliberately or accidentally released, it's highly plausible.
Yeah, just after a few days after the trade and US trade agreement between China and US went sour. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
It is very suspicious.
Yeah,
very, very suspicious. I think, but I think it's highly unlikely that it came from a wet market. That's for sure. But
yeah.
we'll probably never know the truth of that. A bit like we'll probably never know the truth about many things, like the moon landing and 9/11.
Have you got a list of other conspiracy theories that we're working through this morning?
Yeah, I got loads of them.
We'll leave it.
I don't necessarily think you need to buy into them entirely, but I think it's worth listening to them, because the truth does lie somewhere in the middle between what is mainstream publicised and what the lunatics of the far extreme of the conspiracy theories think. I think there is somewhere in between lies the truth. I don't think it's necessarily one side or the other.
Yeah, and it's only with history, it's only as we become history that these things will become apparent. As we're in the thick of it, we're not going to find out.
Well, that's what that's saying, you know, I'm going to paraphrase it, but essentially a man who ignores or chooses not to read history is doomed to repeat it. Absolutely true. And it's laid out, and we're cyclical creatures in a cyclical universe, and these things do go round and round, and the less you read about history and the less you understand what's happened previously, the more likely you are to repeat, because you just think you're doing it for the first time and you're unconscious about it. But actually, if you look at the patterns over time, you could avoid making the same mistakes as a collective if there was more awareness. And I think, you know, just trusting that, oh yeah, this is the right thing for us, which is exactly what a lot of innocent German people did in the 1930s, and then before they knew it, they were stood on the streets, you know, in crowds, laughing and jeering as Jewish people were being dragged from their homes and beaten. And ordinary, and over a very short period of time, very ordinary German people, good people, were conditioned to the fact that that's the right thing to do. And that's obviously at the far extreme, but it happens quite quickly. You have to be very careful. And so Ray Dalio's been writing quite a lot around the history. He's looking at this from an economic standpoint as to what happens with the rise and fall of empires, you know, economic empires and political empires and the rest of it. And you know, he's saying that actually our time period now is the most similar to 1930 to 1945 in the fact that economically we're at the end of a big debt cycle, and that creates a greater divide between the haves and the have-nots, and that creates a great environment for the populist politicians, aka Trump. And then you end up with a very difficult situation because there needs to be a lot of debt restructuring. There's no way that it can all be paid back, right? This is where we were in 1929, 1930. There was huge amounts of debt, and there was no way of ever being able to pay back. And through the war, more debt piled up, and at the end of the war, they had to restructure a load of debt. You need capable people to lead through that time. The challenge is when you get into this time like we are now, and you're seeing great polarization in the public, and us and them and us and them, and you get people like Trump who shout the loudest and say things get voted in. Now, he's also not particularly well equipped to deal with challenging situations. So you end up in this perfect scenario, and it creates, you know, unfortunately, conditions for where conflict happens. Right? You've got people like him with a hot trigger finger, and various other countries where you can quite easily end up with conflict. There's a power struggle between China and America for economic dominance. So that creates an environment for conflict. Alongside that, you've got the backdrop of people like Putin who are more than happy to support someone like China if force were required to, because there's lots of debt mounted up. Lots of people have invested, and we were talking about this on Friday, that, you know, China have heavily invested in places like Africa, which is what America did in the 50s and 60s in certain parts of the world to create a dependency on America. Well, China's done the same thing in Africa. There's now a dependency on China in Africa. and they're not going to walk away from that and say, right, we're going to cancel the debt, because globally, if we all cancel debt, we'd be in no different position to where we are now. China goes, hang on a second, no, we've put all of that investment in, we want it back. And so there's a conflict there straight away between the US that could write off a load of debt, and China, who are highly unlikely to, and the same way as America probably would have done a long time before. So just things to be watching and be conscious of, because we do have a habit coming round. And it's interesting watching Warren Buffett, part of his address to shareholders for Berkshire, his annual address to shareholders for Berkshire Hathaway, and he's not investing at the moment. Actually, he's a net seller. He sold his airline shares, and he's sitting on $130 million worth of cash and not entering the market at the moment, which is quite telling in itself. And also, he was quite bullish in America, saying I would never bet against America, because America has always and will always, prevail. But that even in itself is kind of like, you see, I see if America's seeing the world that way and China's seeing it from another way, there is a great potential for conflict. Political situation at the moment. Lots to be aware of, I think. Lots to be aware of. It's just, and the most important thing that we can do is just be aware and be informed. And I think there's some great sources of information available that aren't overly partisan in any direction. Stuff that Ray Dalio's writing at the moment from a neutral standpoint and really objective on history and patterns of history, which is well worth spending the time to do that.
Just on that, what about at the end? Because I think this would be kind of valuable to other people. Is obviously there is a lot of information around at the moment. It is very easy to become overwhelmed, and perhaps if you could just leave the links of sort of sources, any sources that perhaps we've come across, just at the bottom, because I know you sort of you directed me towards the Ray Dalio posts that he's writing up at the moment, and just having that direction in amongst all the other nonsense that's online at the moment, I think that would be really valuable.
That's the trick, is to try and find the more calm, rational take on things that don't have a particular agenda. No, someone like Ray,
Ray, first name terms.
Yeah.
First name Ray.
Calling him by two names.
Good old Ray.
Like him, you can't really. Well, Trump becomes a surname, doesn't it? So it's the same thing. But I think for someone like him, he's looking at it from an objective point of view, as an investor, as a kind of a student of history and an interested person, and actually as an American to be voicing, writing a series that's entitled "Changing World Order" is quite the opposite to what you hear from a lot of people coming out of the States at the moment. I'm looking at a lot of the market news, the financial news, and there's what I'd probably call a fair amount of propaganda around at the moment, supporting the current stock market valuations, trying to justify the fact that it is still overvalued and it's right to be overvalued, and despite the fact that we haven't had Q2 earnings results, and ultimately, why do people invest in the stock market? Invest in companies because you believe that they're going to increase their value over time through increased productivity and earnings, right? And if those earnings are then hindered, the company isn't growing. So how can your investment ultimately grow over time? That's what you're ultimately investing in, is an asset that's going to increase in value because it's more productive. Well, if you're not more productive, then the reality is the value of that asset has to contract. So there's a lot of it's definitely a lot of people trying to justify the current position, but there's some key indicators about Friday, and one of the main ones is a thing called the Wilshire GDP, which basically evaluates the total market capitalisation of any stock market against that country's GDP, gross domestic product. And the US, the S&P 500 is currently up 170% GDP, and they say that normal range, average range, is about 75, and there's some debate over whether 75 is the right number now, and it's been creeping up higher and higher for the last 30 years. And some people say maybe 100% is right. Well, 100% is still a lot different to 170%, isn't it? So, how do you justify that 170% of GDP is a good valuation? FTSE, interestingly, is much more reasonable. I think it's about 85%, which makes sense, but it's kind of irrelevant what the FTSE value at in comparison to the S&P, because we've seen it before in 2008, right? If there's a big crash in the States, it brings the global economy down anyway because they hold the reserve currency. It'll be interesting to watch. The other thing I thought I'd bring up, get your take on, is I saw this morning Branson and Virgin advisors for restructuring and insolvency if they're unsuccessful in raising £500 million to see them through the current Virgin Atlantic through the current crisis. And I'd be interested to get people's thoughts around how a billionaire, a multi-billionaire, effectively putting the company through that risk when trying to source trying to source funding or support from external when potentially could be found internally.
I haven't read too much about this, but I would imagine that he knows that it's a high risk and he doesn't want to risk his own money. I would highly suspect that he knows it's going to fall down like a house of cards, and he's not going to waste £500 million of his own money. He knows it's not going to work anyway.
Exactly, and so is that right? Is it right that then we can effectively be begging? I mean, this is why the government supported.
Well, otherwise he'd have an effigy burning of himself somewhere because all his staff are going to want to kill him because he knows that he's going to make so many people redundant. He already went through the mill with putting everyone on redundancy. When all this began, he already looked horrendous. Made Virgin look pretty bad at the beginning of all this. So he needs to find a way of coming out of it with some dignity, I think. And he won't be the only one, will he?
That's the question, isn't it? I mean, look, is it right that multi-billionaire founders and CEOs are seeking government bailouts, taxpayer bailouts, to get them through when it could be, like you say, probably because he knows that there's a high risk? Well, then should he gamble our money, or should he gamble his own money, or their, these very wealthy people? Why wouldn't they gamble their own? Silence.
I thought Martin was going to jump in.
So did I.
You were
I'm
hoping.
going to. I think I lost my train of thought when I was trying to get it onto on a different screen on the phone. I think the big corporations find a way to manipulate the taxpayers' money or the government bailout because they can say, look, we've got 5,000 employees, and it's just a high stakes game of poker. We've got 5,000 employees, and I've got this much money needed. Now, I don't want to put my own money in, and right now I'm going to say to you, either you give me the money or I'll make 5,000 people redundant or bankrupt, redundant. It's up to you. And they just walk away from it, almost just playing poker, just knowing full well that the government have then got a choice. They're backed into a corner. Do they call their bluff and expect them actually, will they really make 5,000 people redundant, or will he actually put his own money in? And it's just a big game of poker, I think. And unfortunately, the government tends to fold probably a bit quicker than probably than they probably should. And they should almost say, I mean, that you've earned millions of pounds in profits out of this organisation that you set up from scratch. It's your company to do what you want with. We're not the government shouldn't bail you out. But at the same token, if you had an employee that was working for Virgin, you'd be going, come on, government, British government, help us out here. But I don't know. That's what I was saying. I think it's just a big game of poker that big corporations can play blindfolded and say, go on, take it or leave it. That's why Branson won't put his own money in, because if the government say no, he's not going to lose out. He's still going to be chilling out on Necker Island somewhere.
It's a long swim, isn't it?
Yeah. No one's going to be able to go there to get him.
No.
Well, that's it, yeah.
And the thing is, where does it end? That's the thing. If you start bailing out one company, where does it end? I've seen that McLaren are trying to also get funding, 160 million to survive, because as you can imagine, no one buying luxury cars in the Formula 1 season hasn't started, so they're struggling.
I'll buy one, but for a lot less money than they sell them.
Yeah, like £100 if you can't shift it.
Yeah, I'll give you a loan. Yeah.
Yeah, I did say that was probably the best time you'll ever find to buy a used Ferrari or Lamborghini, because there's quite a few have gone sitting collecting dust.
I think buying a new one is probably a good idea. I don't think getting a second-hand one. Some of them cars, they do well in the second-hand market. It's probably safer than any other asset at the moment.
True.
Actually, that's what I'm going to tell my wife when I put this call down anyway. If only the garage is open, I could go and get one.
I'll tell you one statistic I did read this morning was so the government have paid $5 billion to 160,000 different companies for some form of support or bailout during this time period, which is a huge number of businesses in this country getting that level of support. So it'll be interesting to see, depending on how long this lasts, how many of those it's able to sustain for the full time period. So I saw also like 40% of pubs is an estimate. I mean, you never know, do you, that are potentially going to close as a result of this. So that's a lot of business.
Yeah, they've been killing pubs for years, haven't they?
Yeah. Smoking ban killed that off.
Yeah. and then they just shut them. Yeah. No, I think it'd be interesting.
You guys obviously, how's things now for your business?
Well, from a recruitment perspective, it's pretty slow. I think that we need just to get what we do. We need to move in. It's just not just the people that we place people with. It's also the people that then those companies then sell to, that create a demand that then produces or needs more salespeople or marketing staff, and we need that to get back to what it could be. Strange. We're kind of optimistic that people might get back into the office at some point this month, but we have to wait and see, I guess.
What about you, Julie? Obviously, not always face to face at this point.
Yeah, so it's a good start, isn't it? Well, yes. So,
Yeah.
Again, I'm going to completely repeat what Martin said. It's slow. You know, everything's slow. I think people are less wanting, corporations specifically, because that's essentially that's who I work with, corporates. They're less inclined to spend money for obvious reasons, and there's just not as much sort of cash flowing through the system. And I think for externals coming in, that's obviously one of the first things. You know, you look to prioritize your employees, but any sort of outside help, that's going to slow down. So yeah, it's slow. So I've had to kind of change my focus on more sort of growing my network, on more sort of marketing, on kind of building my assets. So essentially working on material that I can present, working on some great sort of webinars, you know, sort of building things like that. Things which, when potentially this all opens back up again, I can deliver. And, you know, I've still got a little bit going on, but yeah, it's like with everyone at the moment. I think no one's in a unique boat. Well, I say that everyone's in different boats, but we're all having to change sort of the way that we're working. So yeah, that's where I am. So it's just at the moment, also with me looking after my son, my husband goes out for the day because he's sort of responsible for some sort of key worker systems. So I have my little boy by myself, and I'm also trying to work. So it's also trying to prioritize. If I've only got 2 hours of the day where I can sort of uniquely focus, and that's generally before he's woken up, I have to figure out what are going to be my best use of that time, what is going to be the best, you know, the most high value way to spend that time. So that I spoke to a business advisor who I've worked with in the past. I spoke with her about that this week, just to help me prioritize. And I've got 3 priorities. And now it's just
3 priorities.
Well, you know, at the top it is build assets and build my network. That, you know, if it does not fall under that as my main category, as the main category, I need to leave it. And I think it's just helped me with the overwhelm of everything, really, and helps me with my focus, because I think otherwise you end up trying to focus on too many things and not doing very well in any of them. So that's where I am. Steve. Steve, where are you?
Well, I'm furloughed, so as far as our business is concerned, I think the focus at the moment is on product development in-house. Obviously, I can't be involved. I had my input on it before I went off, but making sure that the product is as flawless and as sort of advanced as it possibly can be when we come back, so we have a better offering. I think the chat really before I went was to make sure that we are better than when we come out of this than we were when we went into it, really. So it's really difficult with a product like we've got, the software that we sell, which is onto CCTV, when it's being used all of the time. It's really difficult to develop it and fix the glitches. What you sort of do really is put sticky plasters over the issues, but when it really slows down and less people are using it, it means you can spend more time actually fixing those problems and developing the product so those problems don't reoccur.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that is where the focus is really at within the business now. And yeah, I think there'll be a better website out the back of it. There'll be a more solid product onto the network. But you know, it's really interesting with all these Zoom calls. You realise how unstable internet is.
Yeah.
And so that is one of our biggest challenges in the industry that we're in, is being on a stable network. We have a very advanced product where it will calculate the speed of your internet, and it will adjust to what it is, and that's the video quality will range from, you've got really good internet, you get a better quality video at the end of it. Your internet is poor, it will reduce the quality of the video so you can still get it. But I think internet providers need to do a lot more to make sure that we're getting better internet into rural areas. I struggle all the time. Martin's clearly struggling today.
Well, I think a lot of people, like, it's everything. I mean, they're not set up for the volume that you're.
No.
Just the sheer volume. I mean, most companies that we speak to were set up to be able to allow kind of 10 or 50, maybe 20% at best of their workforce to be able to work remotely, whether that be IT systems, phones, just general systems set up. And yet all of a sudden it's 100% of the workforce or 90% of the workforce is working from home.
Yeah.
Like people are not set up to be able to do that. And that's huge. That's one of the irony is I've got I have fibre here is if I do a speed test, it's probably, I don't know, somewhere between 70 and 90. Pretty good, really.
Right.
But even that doesn't work all the time. Do you know what I mean? Certainly at 8 o'clock in an evening, it's like, that's not going to play table today. When everyone's
the thing is, it's got to change, because I can't see those figures going back down to 20%. That's going to go up. It's going to stay. It's going to maintain at a high level now. I think that a lot of people, I don't know how you feel, Martin, if push came to shove, would you be happy to give your office up and go remote and meet in a hotel reception once a week? We did a podcast the other day, didn't we, Dave? And he was saying that he doesn't think he wants an office again. Doesn't want to go to work in an office again. He wants, was it once a month a meet up, or once a week a meet up with his staff? Once a week a meet up with staff face to face. But other than that, he can save a fortune on commuting and office space. And
I can't. I'm not going to give up the office. I love the office. I think it's. Oh, is it really? Yeah.
Yeah. Sound like
oh, really? It's funny because you don't notice it this end because it seems normal.
Yeah.
It doesn't go fuzzy this end.
Sounds like you've been on the beers already
great.
this morning.
Maybe not then.
Go on. The office. Yeah.
The office is great, and I think we use it and we bounce ideas off each other in the office. And I think that I wouldn't like to give that up. I mean, I was a rep for many years, and although you can be effective, the reason I decided to go and work in an office because I wanted to bounce ideas off people and be more productive and be more effective during the working day. Don't get me wrong, I can work from home. It's you can't with kids around. That's a given. But I think if the kids were at school, I could be effective at home. But would I want to do it all day, every day? Definitely not. I want to go into the office and compete with the people that I work with and just have a laugh, have a joke, and kind of work in that environment where you kind of get stuff done together.
You work in a high energy environment, don't you? You guys are all high energy, and obviously that would dwindle at home, especially come Thursday. You'd be a bit more sluggish probably than you would be in the office.
And also it's around creating ideas, really. I mean, someone that you can say something, who's that company we worked with, or what was that person, and before you know it, you bounce some ideas off and creating something from nothing. And I think that's kind of what we try and do. And there's a right. If it's going to kill millions of people, I can work from home. But at the same token, if people are working not working from home, I can't make any money anyway. So it's kind of it can't happen. But if I had the choice and I was allowed to, and it's safe to, I would 100% work in the office. And it doesn't save me on the commute because I've got on my bike.
If anything, it would make it harder for him to convince Marie he needs another bike.
Yeah, it would. Yeah.
And Martin, I'm going to pick up on something that you mentioned, which was when you worked as a rep. You were having to, travel to see other people. You were constantly on the go. You can work in hotel receptions and all these places, but it's almost, you just want to now be still, want to find your home. And I think I completely agree with you on that. It's almost on my, it's on my desire list. I was sort of in consulting prior to what I do now, and I was traveling around and I was doing things in meeting people in coffee shops, hotel receptions, and in the foyers of big, large corporations. You try and hot desk, you couldn't find a seat. You'd end up perched, on the side of something whilst taking critical calls. It's just not really that desirable, is it? So I think unless office culture changes, how do you make it work? As a kind of a rep, I don't know, but I definitely would love to have an office. That is one of as a dream of mine, and it's totally antiquated because I think, but it comes from not having that for so long and wanting to be in one place. And also, I think it's a lot to do with mindset. It is a lot to do with leaving your compartmentalization, leaving your home life and going and sitting
Yeah.
in an office. I think there's something quite mental about that. But I totally with you. If you've come from one where it's a bit suboptimal, but you can make it work, to going to another, I think it's very difficult to give that up, particularly like you say, the sharing of ideas, all that energy that you can feed off. It's incomparable, really.
It is. I mean, you can kind of, we're getting by at the moment, but that's kind of all we are. I mean, it's, yeah, I want to be back in the office with the team, and we see each other on Zoom, but slowly but surely people are definitely and also you just lose part of from using technology, I guess. But I could do 1 day a week from home, but as a main, without a doubt, I'd like to work in the office again.
Yeah.
I think there'll be some interesting experiments that come along. There'll be I think some businesses will probably try to operate without premises, and it'll probably work for some, and others they may find that they need to go back to work in the same room. I think it'll just be probably a few years of experimentation now for try, because there is a massive incentive financially. Particularly if you're central London based, some of those rents are absolutely astronomical, and there's a lot of businesses probably got suckered into the ego of being based in the Shard or in Heron Tower or something like that. Have suddenly gone, well, do we really need that multi-million-pound overhead, or can we operate? Could we shrink down at least? You know, maybe you've got 2 floors or 3 floors now. Maybe you only need 1 floor because some teams, it's not critical for them to be in the same room together. They can operate, but particularly technical teams. I find, wherever I've worked, technical IT teams tend to work quite a lot with colleagues in other parts of the world anyway. Yeah. And even if they're based in the same office, they will seem to operate via group because they're able to share information around each other better and easier than if they're all sat in one room trying to look at one screen. They've all got their own screen. So you might find that certain sectors will move to more remote, and I think for a sales perspective and then kind of creative, it's harder to not be in the same room. You do bounce ideas off each other. Far better if you're in the same location by doing this, and you can't have the ad hoc conversations like Martin just said. Leaning over your shoulder and saying, "Who was that we spoke to last week?" You can't do that. You've got to try and pick up the phone or text or something else, and it's just not as immediate or as collaborative. So it'd be interesting to see it.
Yeah.
But immediate. Go on. Sorry, carry on.
I was going to let you carry on because I was just about to say we've overrun our hour, and I've got to go and get in the queue for the supermarket to get my weekly shop.
Yes. Yes.
And then bust my arm, my hands and my shoulders trying to carry the stuff home. Yeah.
I like this. This is practicalities. You're addressing the practicalities of modern day living. You've got to go and queue in the supermarket. You've got to
walk around the corner and find out how big is the queue.
Who's going to be the first retail outlet to actually make most of this situation? Because I can't see people not queuing for supermarkets for quite a long time. Who's going to be the first retail outlet to come up with an idea to make it more efficient and to not have to queue outside in zigzags when it starts raining?
I know.
Getting cold. These people are still going to need their food. I queued to get in B&Q the other day for 50 minutes. There was only 25 people in the queue. There has to be a better way. There has to be another way. There has to be.
Book a Table have been working on creating a time system, a bit like you do with your click and collect.
Yeah.
You never get one of those bloody things. I can't get delivery or click and collect for any of the supermarkets because I'm not an existing customer for most of them, obviously, and I'm also not old and vulnerable in any way, size, shape, or form. So every time I click onto a website, I get no options for anything. So I have to go and queue. I did see that Book a Table are trying to build a system where you could effectively book a time slot to go into retail outlets, and you go between 1 and 2 or whatever.
Interesting. I had a conversation with someone on a similar sort of thing, but for a big company, they sell big entertainment systems to people like Disney, like Orlando, well, people like that, big Universal Studios. And obviously at the moment, yeah, I was thinking about that. Yeah. But they're basically they do, because obviously they're all closed at the moment, and then what they're doing is like the apps. So when you go to Disney World, you get an app, or you would go at a set time, just like you were going to the cinema. And I think you use it at the moment where you can get a priority pass, so your kids don't queue. So you pay a bit more, but you go on the, I don't know, Thunder Looper or whatever it may be at 10 o'clock, and then you can book to go on somewhere, the next ride, the Nemesis or whatever it may be. See how old I am now, talking Alton Towers. But going on maybe at 1 o'clock, and then you can have lunch at a certain time, so you can go. But when you book your ticket in advance, you would book every single ride that you go on at a set time that would take you around the park in a very specific way, and that would allow them to honour social distancing but get people back in, because these businesses are not going anywhere. They're not going to close Disneyland, they're not going to close Universal Studio, but they need to find a way to make money, and they need to find a way to do it quickly. So I spoke to a guy who's kind of working within kind of digital entertainment and specifically app technology, selling it to Disneyland to be able to reopen those parks by using mobile phones to be able to prioritise their visits. So it's quite interesting. I would imagine the same sort of thing in somewhere like B&Q. You say, well, I want to go to B&Q. I mean, I think you do have to queue to go on their own website, so it might be a bit challenging at the moment. But when it gets up and running, you'd book a certain time to go, or you have to go to Tesco's at a certain time, and you'd have like probably a 10-minute window where you could go in maybe for half an hour, 40 minutes.
They could do a bit of an extension on the side of the building where you can queue indoors, though, like, in that way, but they could have their goods on show. You end up standing in the queue for half an hour going off. When you get to that aisle, that's it in the basket, isn't it?
Visual merchandising.
Yeah, this is screens up.
Yeah, you can see it, but you can't touch it.
Yeah.
One thing I think for the next time we get together, probably in 2 weeks, because I can't do next Sunday, but one thing I try and speak to some people around is the mass participation sport. I know there's a lot of work going on for a lot of the events, trying to work out how do they get mass participation sport back up and running with social distancing rules in place. How do you run triathlons, marathons, and park run and all the rest of it? They've got to come back at some point. You can't just have them switched off forever. It's not good for everybody. And also, a lot of these, the organisers rely on the income to be able to survive and put the events on for the following years. So, speak to some contacts around thoughts on that.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, I need park run to come back because I've got to run 5 different park runs this year as part of my goals list. So
they might all be in December at this rate.
They might, yeah.
Right, I'm going to go off and
it's been a pleasure.
It's been good fun, and
it's been good.
We will reconvene.
Sorry about the internet.
Yeah,
the irony of that is that you also just slurred Brilliant.
Take care, guys.
Enjoy the rest of your Sundays. See you.
Yeah, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
See ya. Bye.
Bye.